From 1910 to 1940, over 175,000 immigrants from Asia left behind their homeland, families, and everything they knew in an attempt to reach the Gimsan, or Golden Mountain that was America. Near the end of their journey, on the verge of reaching this life so longed for, the immigrants encountered an island in China Cove off San Francisco, in which they were to be detained and questioned rigorously in order to prevent their passage into the country. The Chinese, who made up the majority of these immigrants, often expressed their feelings about the abuse of their human rights at this immigration station through poems and stories carved into the walls themselves. Although the American government took responsibility to control the flow of Chinese immigrants, their methods of prevention violated the due process and human rights of the detainees. This is Angel Island. Throughout the 19th century, economic and social conditions in China worsened due to natural disasters and political upheaval. As the disorder in China increased, opportunities such as the California Gold Rush emerged across the Pacific amidst a booming American economy, and labor jobs were available during the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. These optimal conditions created the initial surge of Chinese immigrants to the United States. Chinese labor soon became so apparent that although Chinese immigrants took up 1/12 of the population of California, they performed a quarter of the labor. Anti-Chinese sentiments grew among the white Americans as their chances of attaining labor positions decreased due to the undeniable Chinese work ethic and willingness to work for low wages. In an environment of cutthroat competition, American workers pressured the government to eliminate Chinese labor. Dennis Kearney, president of the 1876 Working Man's Party, stated, "By the Eternal, we will take them by the throat, squeeze their breath out, and throw them into the sea. The Chinese must go. They're stealing our jobs." Hatred against these Chinese soon had a name: the Yellow Peril.
You have the political exclusion happening, but it's always been part of different popular movements and public opinion. That's when a lot of the very virulent anti-Chinese imagery and music and films were made. So the commercial culture has always had kind of an intimate relationship to racism in that way.
Even through immense discrimination, a belief of achieving success was still a prominent view.
It's not just that the pasture's green are always on the other side. It's true that what they would make in one day would be more than what they would make in a month working in China. $1 a day would be enough to feed a family for a week in China.
Asian resentment reached a climax in 1882 as Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, prohibiting Chinese laborers to enter the country altogether. However, as per the 14th Amendment, relatives of current United States citizens still had the right to immigrate. The San Francisco earthquake of 1906 destroyed most immigration records in the city, and as a result, young Chinese males began claiming to be sons of current United States citizens of Asian descent. Chinese men would often purchase fake papers to claim that they were sons of a United States citizen, therefore retaining the name Paper Sons. To process cases and applicants, Angel Island Immigration Station was built in 1910 as the guardian of the Western Gate. Angel Island was used to detain and control the flow of Chinese persons into the country, with the ultimate goal being to stop it altogether. Contrasted with Ellis Island in the east, where, although chaotic, its real purpose was to prevent the spread of disease and welcome Europeans, not to prevent immigrants from stepping foot in America.
The average length of stay there was 3.5 hours. The average length of stay here on Angel Island for a Chinese immigrant was 3.5 weeks.
Many of those who were lucky enough to make it through Angel Island found homes here in San Francisco's Chinatown. Many other Chinese spread throughout the American West, for instance, here in Butte, Montana, which had the Rocky Mountain region's largest Chinatown.
But too many of these immigrants were unfairly denied access to this land of opportunity, as nearly impossible, intricate, and detailed questioning procedures were used, not only to find any potential errors in technicality, but essentially to trick the Chinese in order to find fault with their application. As follows are a few excerpts from Cho Chu-lin's statement when questioned in 1919 by J.F. Dunton, showing the abstract nature of the inquiries used to ensnare the Chinese. Has your family moved since you left China?
No.
What kind of floors are in your house?
Brick tile.
Where do you get water for domestic use?
From a well which is located in my own house in the open court.
Does each house have a well in that village?
Yes.
How is water drawn from the well?
We use a wooden bucket with a pole.
While agents wanted to ensure that claims were legitimate, their purposely obscure questions prolonged the detention of the Chinese, violating their due process rights to a reasonably timed application. In addition to a writ of habeas corpus, conditions on Angel Island were very poor.
It was like being in a jail. Here you are on this island where you can basically see America. To be denied that was terrible.
Immigrants in Angel Island stayed in crowded quarters like these, sometimes as long as 22 months.
The experience of immigrants waiting to determine whether they could be allowed in the country or were going to be excluded. That psychological dimension of immigrant detention was often seen as inhumane.
The Chinese ladies stay over there over 2 years. Can you imagine that? Stay over 2 years. Of course, some committed suicide. I met the man that his brother jumped off the roof and killed himself because it's just can't stand that.
While at Angel Island, many Chinese carved poetry into the walls, expressing their sorrow and frustrations.
They wrote it in Chinese, so they certainly didn't have Americans in mind to read these poems. It was really written for themselves and for their countrymen and for future generations, I think, of Chinese Americans.
While at Angel Island, the Chinese experienced neglect and imprisonment. Upon arrival to America, the Chinese continued to experience this exclusion and resentment from white supremacy. In fact, this animosity did not begin to alleviate until Angel Island was shut down in 1940, and the Chinese Exclusion Act suspended in 1943, when America and China became allies during World War II. Although immigration was now legal for the Chinese, their quota numbers were still low compared to European countries, until 1965, when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the immigration law, stating that all immigrants wishing to enter America would be admitted based on skill and connections to those in America, rather than race. Today we see the effect of the new immigration law, as in 2010, over 4 million Chinese people were recorded living in America. Chinese in America have made great accomplishments despite adversity. Today, many Chinese are found graduating at the top of their class and holding high management positions for major American corporations.
So there's lots of lessons that we can learn from Angel Island. It continues to be relevant in how we think of ourselves, our immigration past, and how we think of ourselves today as Americans.
I can easily see how this happened. The feeling was pretty widespread throughout the United States that the Asians are an economic threat.
I think this country and all countries have a right in this day and age to control their borders. But if it's based on a racial logic, then I think those rights really are against human rights, larger questions of human rights, and therefore really should not be validated.
The harsh treatment of the Chinese at Angel Island and in the workforce is one of complexity and a combination of fear and racism. Evidence of this fear and racism was apparent in the approach to address the Yellow Peril, and although it was the responsibility of the government to regulate immigration, the rights of the Chinese at Angel Island were undoubtedly violated. The lessons of Angel Island make evident the danger of the effect of xenophobia on the government. Angel Island can serve as an example for future generations as to avoid making the same mistakes.